When I was a boy, we lived in a valley, which is nestled between two very close mountains. And my brothers and I decided one summer afternoon that we should explore the land that we lived on. We had just recently moved there. And since our parents worked, we had nothing better to do. After we had done our chores, we packed up a lunch and we grabbed our dog, who was a Doberman. His name was Zach. And my brother Scott picked up his pellet gun, and we decided to head into the very center of the woods out behind our house. Now the woods were very dark. It had a very thick canopy, and over that canopy, the amount of leaves that were present kept the sunlight at a very minimum, especially during midday. It was a dark wood, a wood full of interesting and also kind of scary possibilities. So my brothers and I, we headed in. We're looking for anything that could be used as landmarks in our future travels. We were looking for box turtles and frogs and other little animals that happened to scamper across our path. And after about 2 hours of solid walking into this dark forest, we found a crater in the earth. And knowing about the stories of the caves that ran up under this valley and also under the mountains around us, we decided to look around and see if this crater actually was a crack to those caves so that we could explore those as well. We spent probably about a good hour overturning tree logs, rocks, pretty much anything that may conceal a crack in the earth. And we were unfortunately unable to find anything. Who knows where this adventure would have been if we had actually found a crack into those caves. But we had worked up a good sweat, and it was high noon, and the land around us was now dark like twilight. So we sat there on the edge of this crater, and we broke out our lunches and started to eat. When all of a sudden, our dog, his name was Zach started to make a low growling noise. Sort of like when dogs see something they don't quite understand. It went something like this. Of course, we couldn't see what the dog was looking at. His eyesight was probably a little bit better than ours, I'm sure. And so we got there, down there next to the dog's head, and looked between his ears to see what he was looking at. And off in the distance, it looked as though there was a person walking in the woods, far off. Of course, the darkness and gloom definitely did not help us see what we were looking at. And whatever it was, it stopped. We don't know if it was looking at us at that time or if it was looking at something else. But the dog kept going on with the low growling sound. It looked to be about 5 feet tall, kind of short, but it was walking upright. But it was so dark that we were unable to figure out what it was. And so my brother Scott decided that he was going to take a shot at it with his pellet gun. I know that sounds kind of silly, but you know, when you're 8 years old and you have a pellet gun, what are you going to do, right? So he shouldered his pellet rifle and took the shot. And just as he did take that shot, the head on that thing swiveled and looked right at us, showing its bright yellow eyes, like fire was lit behind them. And that's when we noticed that the dog had left. Not chasing the creature, no. Heading back to the house with its tail between its legs, running as fast as it could. My brothers and I looked at each other and looked back at the creature and noticed that even in the gloom we could see that it was getting closer. And so we decided that we should follow that dog. The dog obviously knew what was happening. So we ran as fast as we could, not looking back. We got to the house as fast as our legs could possibly carry us, and we locked ourselves inside and looked out the windows, waiting to see if whatever that thing was appeared in the clearing. Luckily for us, it did not come out of the woods. We never told our parents about that day, and we never went back to the crater again. We kept well away from that place, not knowing what that creature was or what its intent was with us. It was many years, when I was actually in my late 30s, that I picked up a book, started reading about interesting legends and lore of northeastern Tennessee, southwest Virginia, western North Carolina. And something appeared, a story that caught my eye, and it was titled The Wampus Cat. To this day, I have a feeling that that was the creature that my brothers and I saw on that day. I was able to look up some information to give you a little bit of insight into what the Wampus Cat is. I hope you enjoyed my story. Now here's some more information about the Wampus Cat and the legends surrounding it. In non-Native American cultures, it's a howling, evil creature with yellow eyes that can supposedly pierce the hearts and souls of those unfortunate enough to cross its path, driving them to the edge of sanity. Cherokee folklore, which is filled with tales of evil spirits lurking in the deep, dark forests that surround their villages, offer a different view of the Wampus Cat. An evil demon called a Yiwa, the spirit of madness, had been terrorizing the village of Etowah in what is now today North Carolina. The village shamans and war chiefs called for a meeting. The wise shamans told the war chiefs that sending the braves to hunt and kill the Yiwa were surely going to be the end of the tribe, for the Yiwa had the terrible power to drive men mad with a glance. The war chiefs argued that the Yiwa could no longer feast on the dreams of the Cherokee children, and that something must be done. Together, they agreed that their strongest brave would go alone and bring a great honor to his family and the tribe by killing the mad demon. Standing Bear was the strongest, fastest, sneakiest, smartest, and most respected brave in all the Cherokee Nation, and he was chosen to do battle with the demon. As he walked from his village, the shamans blessed him, and the war chiefs gave him many fine weapons with which to slay the beast. And on the edge of town, his wife, Running Deer, bid him a final farewell. She would never see him in the same way again. Weeks went by, and there was no word from Standing Bear. Suddenly, late one night, the stricken brave came running back into camp, screaming and clawing at his eyes. One look, and Running Deer knew her husband was no more. With time, he would be able to pick berries and work in the fields with the young girls and the unmarried widows. But he would never be any good as a husband again, and by Cherokee law, that meant he was dead. Standing Bear's name was never again mentioned, but Running Deer had loved her husband, and she wanted revenge. Running Deer went to the shamans, and they gave her a booger mask, a bobcat's face, and they told her that the spirit of the mountain cat could stand against the Yuwa, but she must be the one to surprise the demon. The war chiefs gave her a special black paste, which she rubbed on her body, which would hide her scent as well as her body. She kissed her former husband on the forehead, his blank eyes staring, and headed off to seek her revenge. Running Deer knew the woods as well as she knew the village, and she ate sweet berries to keep up her strength over the many days. But still she came across no sign of the Yuwa. Then, late one night, she heard a creature stalking down by the stream. As she crept slowly towards the creek, she heard a twig snap behind her. She spun, and just as suddenly realized how quickly it could have been the end of her. Behind her, a wily fox darted across the pathway. If that had been a Yuwa, I would be mad now, the widowed Cherokee woman thought to herself, as she continued towards the creek. At the edge of the creek, she found footprints which did not belong there, and her former husband's breastplate lay at the edge of the water. As she followed the prints upstream, she saw the demon, its hulking form lurching hideously over the water, drinking from the pristine mountain spring. The Yuwa hadn't seen her. Running Deer crept ever closer, and just as she felt that she could bring herself no closer, she sprang. The Yuwa spun and saw the cat spirit mask and began to tear at itself as the spirit of the mountain cat turned its powerful magic back on itself. The Yuwa tumbled backwards into the pool, and Running Deer immediately turned on her heel and ran as fast as she could back to the village, never once looking back. When she arrived home, she sang a song to herself, a quiet song of grief for her husband, but also of joy for the demon's banishment. The shamans and war chiefs declared Running Deer the spirit talker and home protector. Some say that the spirit of Running Deer inhabits the Wampus Cat, and that she continues her eternal mission of watching her tribe's lands to protect them and their peoples from the demons that hide in the dark and lost places of Tennessee.